Do you look on the bright side of things, or do you pride yourself on your realistic or even pessimistic outlook? Many pessimists believe that their more negative attitude or tendency to anticipate undesirable outcomes will protect them from disappointment or prepare them to deal with unpleasant events. If you're not naturally optimistic, why might cultivating a more positive and hopeful attitude be a good idea? Research shows that optimism is strongly linked to our well-being and resilience, and that optimists are happier, healthier and more successful than pessimists. Resilience, or the ability to bounce back from setbacks, is a critical component of any personal transition or reinvention, and is particularly important if you're starting your own business so that you can sustain yourself through the inevitable highs and lows. With all of these advantages, you may be interested to learn how to become more optimistic. Dr. Martin Seligman, who's known for his groundbreaking work in the field of positive psychology, identified the importance of what he calls our explanatory style in the face of difficult or stressful events. There are three main aspects to this: personalisation, pervasiveness and permanence. So let's think about your own explanatory style just for a moment. Imagine you've just had an interview for a job you really wanted. You were nervous and you couldn't answer a couple of the questions. You've just found out that you didn't get the job. So what sort of things might you say to yourself? Do you make it personal and internal and blame yourself, saying something like, "Oh, I'm terrible at interviews, I get so nervous"? Or do you look for an equally feasible external explanation, such as, "Interviews are pretty nerve-wracking, I expect everyone dries up sometimes"? Do you ascribe a pervasive, wide-ranging explanation, such as, "Whatever I do seems to go wrong"? Or do you look for a more specific rationale, such as, "I know I get nervous in interviews, I just need to learn to relax so I can communicate as well as I usually do at work"? And how permanent do you believe your experience to be? Would you be likely to react by thinking, "I'll never get a job"? Or would you think, "Well, that was disappointing, but there are lots of other opportunities"? If you tend to use more personal, pervasive and permanent explanations, your self-esteem is likely to suffer, and it will be more difficult for you to move forward constructively in the face of difficult circumstances. So this is where the ABC technique can really help. This approach was created by psychologist Dr. Albert Ellis and then adapted by Dr. Seligman. So when something we perceive to be bad happens to us, this is the A, an adversity. How we think about this adversity creates the B, our beliefs. And our beliefs then influence what we do next, so become the C, consequences. So in the example I just described, that would look like this. So the adversity was that you just found out you didn't get the job. Your belief is that you blame yourself, tell yourself you're no good at interviews and start to worry that you'll never get a job. And the consequence is that you lose confidence, and the night before your next interview you can't sleep because you're so worried. Your self-belief is at an all-time low because you've been beating yourself up, and by the time you get to the interview you're a nervous wreck and you can't string a sentence together. So learning to eavesdrop on your own internal dialogue will allow you to understand your explanatory style, and writing down the beliefs and consequences that occur when you're faced with difficulties can make it easier to identify your typical thought patterns. If you become aware that your explanations are not really helpful to you, you can start to use some techniques to change these. So here's a couple of them. Distraction can be a quick way to break the cycle when you catch yourself thinking negatively. Maybe try doing something that will take your mind off your doubts and fears, like taking some exercise or talking to a friend. For a more lasting solution, you could also start to challenge your beliefs by replacing them with more inspiring alternatives. Look for the flawed logic in your thinking and come up with some positive affirmations that you're comfortable with, that offer more balance or realistic optimism. For example, getting a new job can be a tough process, but the right job for me is out there. I just need to keep going. Remember, we're all human, we're not perfect, we make mistakes, but we can learn from them and move on. To build your optimism and resilience, you need to change what you believe about yourself and the situation when something undesirable happens. The more helpful and energising these beliefs are, the more positive you'll feel, and this will put you in the best frame of mind to create positive outcomes. So sign up for our complimentary Kickstart Your Career programme for more tips and techniques to help you get more satisfaction and success in your career.